Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson, Michael Grumbine, and Dan Coates.
Wow. Yeah.
It's our first year, guys.
Every year we're going to do that, aren't we? Year
intro
two.
music. No, guys, 1 year.
Awesome.
1 year was a week ago today. It was May 24th,
Don't give away
2022.
secrets.
That's not a secret. You can actually just go and look at the podcast list and see what date it was.
But who does that?
Yeah.
Come on.
I do. But 1 year. So this makes this episode a little bit different because instead of diving into Tolkien, we're going to dive into each of our brains. Now we're going to talk about like where we started from and get a lot of information about, who we are and why we love Tolkien, what got us into that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the stats around the podcast, and we'll get questions in the extended members section from our members, who you can become one if you go to theonering.com/member. It's $4 a month.
I've decided to ad-lib a question into the member section, which I will tease here, which is,
sweet.
What do our families really think about this podcast and us doing it?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wait, see, now I got to add it to my show notes. What do our families think about this podcast? That's a great. Yeah, or which family members too, because it makes a difference.
Well, see, now you changed it. I'm going to dominate like 20 minutes of that segment.
Oh, man.
Let me list them and all of their various
kids.
reactions.
All right. So yeah, become a member, but we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But first, I want to say, guys, I had a good week. Last night, my wife's mom actually texted her and she's like, "Hey, there's this Tolkien trivia night at this bar and grill in town near us, which we've been to before." And
Oh, nice.
Oh,
So,
no. See, I'm jealous now.
I know. So we were like, "Oh, it's in 2 hours." She's like, "I'll babysit the kids," and I said, "Okay, let's go." And we went, and there were 23 questions, but I got one wrong.
Nice.
The entire time.
Yeah.
It started off with simple things, kind of like, what was the name of Frodo's sword? What was the name of Aragorn's sword? Which, still relatively easy. But then...
Which name of Aragorn's sword?
Oh, they took both. They took both Narsil and Anduril. And I'm a little miffed at that. They should have just taken Anduril, because Narsil is not Aragorn's sword.
Well, but it is because he carried it, so I see why they accept it.
All right. But not. It was theoretically a films thing. The one question I got wrong is, what is the name of the river that flows through Lothlorien?
Through Lothlorien.
And it's not the Anduin.
No, it's not the Anduin. It's.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want me to take a shot?
Well, I know Dan doesn't know because I couldn't remember it for the life of me. Here, do you know, Dan? I don't think they even mentioned it in the movies at all because it was supposed to be about the movies. But go ahead, Michael. What is it?
There's two of them at the top above Lothlorien, so I'm not sure which one it was, but it's Nimrudil.
No,
not Nimrudil.
No.
Okay, hold on. The Silverlode.
Yes, you're right. The Silverlode. It has another name. They didn't actually mention the name Silverlode in the answers. It's called, I think, the Celebrant, I believe, is the name for it. Right. So anyway, got that one wrong. But it was us, and it was a family of 3 Scottish people, a family that came to do this, and the guy had a tattoo of Narsil on his leg. He was like 60 something.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and it was essentially because my wife went and she's like, "Yeah, I don't have any of the answers, so it's all on you." So and we got to the tiebreaker, and then the tiebreaker question, the first one was, what's the name of the bridge that Gandalf faces the Balrog on? And I was like, it's the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. I don't think it has another name. I'm pretty sure that's it. And so I was like, it's one of those trivia things. You're like, am I missing? Is there a name?
All of a sudden, self-doubt creeps in. You're like, wait.
So we both got that one right. And then he's like, I just got to find a really hard question. And so his next question was, what year was Tolkien's first novel published?
Oh,
so
I would have got that wrong.
Really? I got that one right.
What? So, you got the year right. That's awesome. What is it?
1937. So you're the Hobbit with
It's the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that, and so I got.
This was actually
was
a competition. It wasn't like a softball game and like the World Series champion shows up and just demolishes everybody else.
No, it was actually like there's some harder questions in there. And
Very cool. Representing the OneWing.com, Jonathan
right.
Watson.
I didn't want to, like, I felt
Did
bad.
you say
saying,
that to them?
No,
Did you tell them?
No, I'm not going to be like, hey, yes, I've been running this website for 25 years and I've kind of been in it the whole time. So I wanted to just bring up some things that, like, how it's changed over the last year, because, and we'll talk about how we started this and everything that happened. Kind of go back to how we met and all that sort of stuff. How we met right there too.
He wore the shirt.
I did. I wore the shirt on purpose. So
I should have too.
we started with the podcast on May 24th. We pretty much right away added YouTube to it, and so we did that. And then we added like a membership. That, you know, so and with an extended podcast and a Discord chat room, and now we also have interviews that we do with people, and we're now doing every other week we're doing live streams, and I've also done some gaming live streams. So the podcast is now a monster. It has morphed into many things, and it's fun. It's busy, but it's good, and I enjoy it. I'm hoping that, you know, we're always shooting for more members and more interactions, because that's really what, I don't know, what brings the most fun. Like when, you know, not that I had a ton of live streamers, people watching, but interacting with them while I was playing was much more fun playing Gollum that way than actually just playing Gollum. That would be, you know, mind-numbingly, eye-boringly boring. So,
exactly. Yeah, that's which is the whole problem with the Gollum game.
It is. There's nothing to do. Yeah, there's nothing to do. So here's some stats then about the first year of what was, okay, and let's go back. It was originally called Window on the West. I can't do Austin's voice, but it was called Window on the West because we
and
thought,
by originally, he means until like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. No, at this point, we're approaching, I think, six whole weeks.
All right. My bad.
But yeah, we named it that just because we were like, well, you know, we want to name something that's sort of, you know, it's indicative of Tolkien, but not necessarily 100% obviously Tolkien. And then we realized, well, we're just talking about Tolkien. If we don't put the name in the title and what we're actually doing, then will people know what the podcast is about? People think it's Window on the West, and you're like, oh, you're a shutters company. You add shutters to your, it's like, no, we don't talk about installing shutters and screens on people's houses.
Only on one part of the country too.
Yeah. So no, we are now exploring Tolkien, and you can go to that URL too. That will work, and it'll go right to our podcast page.
Can't believe we got Exploring Tolkien. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Whole $9 it was awesome. Still available. Surprised by that. So we've had 50 episodes. All right, here are the stats. 50 episodes. With 35 member-only episodes, which are getting longer and longer with every week that we do it.
Next week we should just start our members episode, and then when we should go right through to the next episode.
So it'll just keep going. Yeah, right.
Just one continuous live stream.
The podcast has had 80,000 listens.
Whoa!
Nice.
Yeah, it's done pretty well across all the different platforms. We have, as of right now, we have 10,582 YouTube subscribers.
Not bad for a newbie effort.
Yeah, I know, for less than a year. And 1,115,258 YouTube views.
Okay.
Thank you, Rings of Power, I guess. But still pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. We're I'm sure we'll see more and more. But you know, that was fun to see it really jump up.
What's your best performing video?
My best.
Let's get the most.
The biggest video is the I believe it's the one that hit hard when I was on vacation, and I filmed it in
a closet.
The closet of my vacation house that I was at for 2 weeks in the middle of Tennessee, in Waynesville, Tennessee. I guess that's really the east side of Tennessee. And it's all the Rings of Power problems in one image. And it got 77,000 views.
Nice.
So
it'll be tune in next week, folks, when Michael says something nice about Rings of Power. I will actually. I have in our penultimate Silmarillion episode. I have a nice thing to say about the Rings of Power.
All right. Okay. Tune in. next week. Yeah. And then
we're going to get our lowest views ever next week.
Then we have 6,163 Twitter followers. 5 TORC Inquisitions so far, which are the interviews that we do, with 3 more planned right now. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm waiting on a 4th. So 4 Fellowship Fridays live by the time that this airs, because we're doing one the day after. Anyway, between when we record this and we publish it, we do another one. So we have 2 gaming live streams, and a lot coming. One bright future. How about that?
There you go. One bright.
So the number keeps getting smaller. So that, I mean, I feel like that's more than I really anticipated in the first year.
Yeah.
If you had laid that out as far as what we expected going into it 1 year in, I wouldn't have come close to that. I thought that it would be what it exactly is, but there was more interest, and maybe a lot of that was Rings of Power. At least it garnered us attention, but because everyone wanted to talk about how bad it was. Mm-hmm. But also it's been your hard work, Jonathan, because you've really added new segments and done new things each time. The interviews have been fantastic, lots of fun with the different authors.
We got a fun one next week, which I don't think I can say quite yet, but
right, it's a good one. And then we've done now we're doing the bi-weekly Fellowship Fridays with different podcasters.
9 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. And we're doing it late. I know some of you are probably like, why is it 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday? Well, number one, a lot of us have kids and we're home on Friday nights. So, there's nothing else to do.
Turns out.
And the other thing, it works for everybody. Yep. So, but yeah, it's we've got, John from Tolkien Road and Miller Mixer and John Trent from Bounding into Comics, right? And then anybody else who can join. Oh, Steve from Glasshammer. We'll get
Austin
more and more.
Freeman will be joining us. Garrett as well.
Garrett, who is going to be starting his own podcast at some point, but he's been a Tolkien aficionado for many, many years. That brings a lot to the conversation. So we'll do that tomorrow night. We'll do that Friday nights starting. So by the time this airs, we'll have had one on June 2nd, and the next one will be on June 16th. So every other week until we decide it's good enough to do every week, and none of us want to have our Friday nights free ever again. I don't know if I can
this
swing
is part
here
of
in this
my
way.
the reason why I have my question for the members section about what the families think about our podcast.
Right, I know. Right, okay. So
it's been really cool to see just the reaction that there is a hunger for. Hey, what did Tolkien actually write? What's Tolkien really about? And just seeing that there's an audience for that, it's been really cool.
Yeah. Stoked a lot by the Rings of Power, of course, and now we got the Gollum game. But it's so sad, isn't it, in a way, that while we've been doing this podcast, the 2 major things that have been released are so bad. They're so not capturing what Tolkien wrote. They're not excellent like Tolkien's work. We got the Rings of Power, which just, in my opinion, failed on so many levels. And then we got this Gollum game, which looks bad, plays poorly, and the story is completely not worthwhile playing, because the whole story, and what they have you do is grab the name tags of the different dead prisoners of the orcs. You have to herd the orc cows. There was a lot of blowing, like I had to blow up, grab a red rock, which I don't know, creates I had to blow up some barrels in some distant caves. Do 3 of those, and I'm just like, why? I don't even remember why, because it was so bland and boring. So the whole game is this. It's ditch digging. There's no point to it, and then you're filling it back in. So anyway, we got those.
I didn't know anything about the game until I saw the studio put out a statement where they were apologizing for it. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
What? There's an Instagram or a Twitter post where the studio that put out the Gollum game were like, "We are so sorry.
I have to do this.
It doesn't live up to our standards, and we apologize." And what's the name of the studio that put it out?
Daedalic. Yeah. The problem is you can't fix just plain. You can't fix just plain bad. There's no it's the mechanics. It's everything. The whole thing is a disaster from the start. So I don't know why they would even put that. One, don't apologize. Never apologize for something you put out, because you're just letting people agree with you that's bad, and you realize, why would I ever trust you in the future? I don't know. I just feel like it's a really, really bad decision.
Can I read it?
Yeah.
All right, here we go, folks. This is how bad the game is when the makers instantly apologize.
I'll put my live stream links in the notes below.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Daedalic Entertainment, dear players, first sentence. We would like to sincerely apologize for the underwhelming experience many of you have had with the Lord of the Ring Gollum.
I know. Isn't that funny? They even misspelled. Austin Freeman pointed that out. He was like, it shows you how much they cared when they couldn't even get.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they didn't get Lord of the Ring.
They didn't get the name of their own game right when they up in a PR release. Oh my gosh. Whoa. This is new lows. Wow. Okay. We acknowledge and deeply regret that the game did not meet the expectations we set for ourselves or for our dedicated community. Please accept our sincere apologies for any disappointments that may have caused and a full refund. Oh, wait, they didn't say that part. They're not going to get a full No one's going to get a refund. No one will get their money back. Our goal as a studio.
Give us money. Thank you.
Exactly. Suckers.
Thanks for the money.
Our goal as a studio and as passionate Lord of the Rings fans, are they sure it's Lord of the Rings instead of Lord of the Ring? Has always been to tell a compelling, immersive, story-driven adventure. Wait. Hold on. They said our goal as a studio and as a passion. So our goal as passionate Lord of the Rings fans has always been to tell a compelling and immersive, story-driven adventure. Always. That's been their goal.
Always.
And they did it once and they failed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can say that's crafting a story with Middle Earth as our playground has been the greatest honor and the biggest challenge we've faced so far. Sorry.
What does that even mean? It's sort of like what it's like. It's like going like, my hardest part of going to work was actually going to work.
Yeah. It reminds me of
it doesn't tell you anything.
Monty Python and the Flying Circus. The writers have been sacked.
Those who have sacked the writers have now been sacked, and those who have been sacked who sacked the writers have now also been sacked, and like it goes on
exactly. In other words, folks, you failed by choosing this as your game. There is no way that this is a compelling game. If you were really Lord of the Rings fans, then you would know. Yeah. You would know that this was not was never going to work. It is Gollum is a fascinating character, but he makes the least compelling playthrough character that there is. The guy can't even put on pants. You get nothing out of it.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, at Daedalic, we understand that a game's success relies on the enjoyment and satisfaction of its players. We genuinely value your feedback and have been actively listening to your voices, reading your comments, and analyzing the constructive criticism and suggestions you have provided. And also, this message was generated by ChatGPT. Our development team has been working diligently to address the bugs and technical issues many of you experienced. We are committed to providing you with patches that will allow you Oh yes, that's gonna fix the game. Patches. Oh my gosh. Once again, we deeply apologize for any inconvenience caused. That line, that's like when someone cancels your flight. That's the message that comes over the loudspeaker. Mm-hmm. We appreciate your understanding during this time. Yep, that's Delta Airlines. Someone cut and pasted the wrong text. We will continue to keep you updated on our progress and provide transparent communication regarding the upcoming patches and improvements. Your passion and dedication of players have been the driving force behind our determination to make things right. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, no one will put their name to it, so they just give their logo.
I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt. I think that at least one person there is a Lord of the Ring fan.
Oh. I agree. I think there are plenty of Lord of the Ring fans.
Yeah. How much did you spend on that, Jonathan, to get a copy?
Also, John, and what was the DLC? What did you pay for the DLC?
$10.
And for what? What did you get for it? What did you get for it?
I got Gollum emotes and Cinderin that apparently hasn't appeared yet. I don't even know what else. Did I get a behind the scenes video of their developers working from home during COVID, during the lockdown? So I asked ChatGPT to write an apology for me, and here's what we got. All right. So we, the hapless knights of game development, find ourselves amidst a sticky situation with our game Lord of the Rings Gollum. We come before you, laden with guilt, to apologize for the monstrous mess we've unleashed upon your screens.
Oh my gosh.
Our quest to capture the magic of Tolkien's universe has gone awry, like a knight in shining armor trying to navigate a swamp full of killer rabbits. Our development
You know what?
process.
I take back what I said. ChatGPT would have been better than this drivel that they gave us.
Our development process resembled a comedy of errors with more twists and turns than a frenzied silly walk. The game, alas, is as wonky as a confused knight wielding a rubber chicken instead of a sword. The textures are more befuddling than the holy hand grenade, and the controls are as chaotic as a castle siege led by a shrubbery-wielding army. Wow, it's really leaning into the Monty Python.
Monty Python, yeah.
Bugs and glitches infest the realm of the Lord of the Rings like a plague of flying cows. We were caught in the clutches of Sauron's eye, blinded by its fiery gaze as we stumbled through the dark corridors of programming. we hang our heads in shame and extend our sincerest apologies. Like knights charging into battle, we vow to don our coating armor and embark on a mighty crusade to vanquish the bugs, smoothen the gameplay, and restore your faith in our quest. Fear not, brave players, for we shall not let this fiasco pass without retribution. Our valiant team, armed with keyboards and unwavering determination, shall work tirelessly to deliver a game worthy of the fellowship of fans like yourselves. So hold tight, dear adventurers, as we venture forth on this perilous path of redemption. Hey, it's the biggest challenge. This perilous path of redemption is the biggest challenge they're going to face so far. We promise to turn the Lord of the Rings Gollum into a gaming experience that will make you laugh, cheer, and rejoice, much like a knight who finally finds his missing limb. With a sprinkle of absurdity and a dash of wit, we humbly ask for your forgiveness and assure you that our future endeavors shall be legendary.
Yeah, that's kind of...
it's better.
It's kind of better.
I'm looking forward to seeing what's in that patch.
So
when they update it.
I know. That might be the time to bring it back.
That's what got me.
So it's funny. So as an aside, so the reason this company made it is because they got a grant by the German government. So they weren't required to actually do a good job because they're not a real business.
What?
That's
is that
what
true?
I believe so. They got a grant from the government, and that's why they are already planning a second one because they got a second grant.
Oh my gosh!
So,
this is awesome. This is so cool. This is an actual live example of why you never give the government anything because it just sucks at everything it does. This is like, seriously, they got to, oh my gosh.
So they got 2 million euros from the German government in order to make the next game after Gollum, whatever that's going to end up being, another Lord of the Rings game.
Why would the German government do this?
Is this just like a make work thing? Like they just want to make employment go up or what?
Like,
probably
employ like 10 people, an extra 10 or something?
It's so bizarre.
Well, no, I'm serious. What stake does the German government have in Lord of the Rings IP?
I have no idea, but there you go. It's funded to make another one, and they received a grant of over 2 million euros from the German government to work on another Lord of the Rings game. There you go, the Gollum game. All right, guys. I don't know if we can leave all this into the episode. It's going to be so long, so we got to move on. We got to talk about the real thing. So first of all, all the stats. Let's rewind, and for each of us, let's talk about how we got started into Tolkien, because I think we talked about this originally, 50 episodes ago or 49 episodes ago, however long ago we did. But I know we have a lot more listeners now, and I thought it'd be interesting to find out, how did you get into Tolkien? I can start, which was in 7th grade. I think at that point I had exhaustive young adventure novels I was going to read, a lot of the Hardy Boys, that kind of stuff, right? Very, very light reading. And my dad was like, "Here, try this." And so I read The Fellowship of the Ring. It had that old funky cover with the weird bird flying thing. I don't remember that. It was really...
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And I couldn't put it down. I read all 3 books in about a week. And I remember, or 2 weeks maybe. I don't remember how long. It was really brief. I just remember particularly finishing The Return of the King. My dad was a pastor, so I would sit in church. Finishing The Return of the King... I wouldn't read during the service. I would read, however, after, while we were waiting for him. I was just sitting there waiting. Finishing The Return of the King and just being so sad, sitting in the church when the Lord of the Rings was over, and going through the appendices at that point, going it's just not a story. What happened? Oh no, there's not enough. And so that was my first real. That was when I got into it, and ever since then, it's been trying to fill that Tolkien-shaped hole in my heart, like I've said before. And I tried the Silmarillion at that age, couldn't do it. Couldn't it was not what I wanted. But I did start reading a lot of other fantasy, which you found some good stuff, but then there was always a lot of duds. But yeah, that's where I started. And then in 99, we started, me and another guy named Ted, we started the OneRing.com. I did not buy theonering.net because I was a starving student at the time, and domain names cost $70 then, not $10. And I'm sure with inflation, that's like $110 now. So I didn't buy theonering.net. And then here, so interesting thing. So we did that, and this was before social media. This was before all the like it's so easy to get information now, right? It's everywhere all the time. People are telling you, like, everything comes out. We had 15,000 articles on the site, just news. Like every bit of news that would come in was posted on the site. And we built our own content management system so that we could manage all that, and we still have gallery and all that sort of stuff.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. At one for the span of like 2 years, we renamed our URL to tolkienonline.com. And so
this feels like a tactical error.
Well, we wanted to be different than the other site, and that lent us a different. I mean, we're still confused with theonering.net, fine. And I know a couple of the founders, it's completely different people running the site now. And we have our own interesting history with them too, which maybe one day I'll reveal. But we had Tolkien Online for, I want to say, say that again?
But only in the members section.
Yeah, right. We could do that.
The members section.
Maybe. So we had Tolkien Online, and then I want to say it was like 3 months after Return of the King came out, I got a letter from a lawyer from the Tolkien estate. And they were like, you can't have this anymore. And in fact, any money you've made on the site while it's been Tolkien Online, you have to give to us. You see these little pins? I have them around. Hey, let me look for it. I got it 1 second.
So basically, it was the same. It was the version of from the Key and Peele skit. You done messed up, Ron.
We did. So I didn't do this. It was my guy who was running it with me at the time.
Jonathan will never know what I said until he edits the show.
That was our. Does that work?
Wait, back it up.
There we go. That was our logo there for a while.
Okay.
You can see how it's like Tolkien. There's the R. Anyway, but we kind of tried to make it separate and change some stylings and things like that. They came to us. This is an old like business card because we were so excited. They came to us and were like, "Yeah, you can't do that." We sold these little enamel pins for our members. We had like 500, 400 paying members at the time too. We had a membership system and message boards and all that. 50,000 people a day came to the site. It was big, but they said. But we didn't make any money because hosting was super expensive. Like it was like $2,000 to $3,000 a month just to keep the site running at the time. And our membership just barely paid for that with the ads. And so they said, any money you made on this, you're going to have to revert to the Tolkien Society or else we're going to sue you. And I was like, oh, great. Well, I told them like, so we made a grand total of like gross was like $700 or $800 on these little pins. See, this isn't a pin. This is just a picture of it. And it cost us like $500 to make them. And they're like, okay, send us the $200. That's what they did.
Wow.
And so that left a really bad taste in my mouth because they did it right after Return of the King, right after the films came out. And I was like, this seems like really opportune timing for that. Mm-hmm. So then we reverted back to theonering.com. We gave them the domain. I'm like, it's not worth my time to fight this at all. It's not like it was a business that was making money or doing anything at that point that I could defend as something to defend. So we just reverted to theonering.com then from Tolkien Online. But now you go to Tolkien Online, it goes right to the Tolkien estate. Anyway, that's how I got started, and then it's been a journey ever since. But Michael, how about you? How did you get started into Tolkien, and where's it taking you?
It's going to sound very similar. So Dan, you go first.
Change it up, okay?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before a long time ago, but I read The Hobbit as part of my 8th grade English class. So we just had daily reading and going through it chapter by chapter. And so I remember doing that. Mrs. Boda in 8th grade was my teacher. And I remember
associated with Tolkien is memorable. That's the only thing I remember.
I remember we had like an art project that was associated with it where like we had a big giant picture of a red dragon sitting on top of a pile of gold. And like she went really into that. So that's a really cool memory. And I think it was shortly after that, like maybe the following year, my grandma bought me the box set with The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. But I sadly did not read the Lord of the Rings. I think I tried to pick up the Fellowship of the Ring multiple times, and I think I just always stopped somewhere in the Shire. I never got out of the Shire.
And why do you think that was? What was it that didn't appeal to you? Are you less of a fiction guy, more of a nonfiction guy?
I think growing up, I'm just less of a reader. Maybe I never really got into fiction. Even now, I would say, like, for the most part, Tolkien is like the only fiction I really read. I've picked up some C.S. Lewis. I picked up some G.K. Chesterton in recent years, but yeah, I'm not a wide reader. I don't read a whole lot. Sadly, that's to my shame. And I think that's partly because it's just growing up in our culture. It's like everything's video games, everything's movies. It's sitting down to read a book. It's like work. You have to really be dedicated to. I'm going to stop everything. Especially now with smartphones, you're just like, okay, I'm going to turn off my phone and open up this book. So I think I read Lord of the Rings front to back maybe when I turned, I want to say 30, 31. Which wasn't that long ago. It was
maybe like 20, 21, 22 years ago. Oh.
So it wasn't that long ago when I finally read. I watched the movie trilogy many times before I finished the book finally. So I always enjoyed the world as I saw it in the movie and the characters that I saw in the movie.
Did you finish the book before the Babylon Bees website? Because we all had connections to the Babylon Bees podcast on Lord of the Rings. The Bee reads Lord of the Rings.
I think that the Babylon Bee did exist when I finally read the book. I was working in a sales job at the same time Kyle was when he started writing articles for them. And it was about that time when I finally read it when I was living down in San Diego.
Okay. So before the Bee Reads podcast.
Yeah, so when the Bee Reads The Lord of the Rings happened, that was my second time reading The Lord of the Rings, and I got way more out of it, because I think when I was reading it the first time, I was almost like reading it just to say that I read it, so you're just kind of reading it faster and not picking up a lot of the details. You're just getting the action, maybe. And then when I read it through with you guys and with Kyle the second time, it's like I got so much deeper into the themes and who these characters are and Tolkien's description of the world. And so, yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people were introduced into The Lord of the Rings more so by the films than by the books. Which brings us to Michael, who is deep into the books, more so than either you or I, Dan. I mean, he's read it. How many times have you read Lord of the Rings? Did you say 21?
I'm finishing my 21st time.
Yeah. Dang.
Wow.
So, but the reason is not because, and actually to Dan's point, I don't think I would if I didn't have kids. So I wouldn't have read it that many times. The wonder of showing them to my children and reading them to them. So since I have a lot of children, I've been reading them every couple of years, every 2 or 3 years. We'll start the cycle over again, read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to the kids. And I started when I was 8. I actually read them cover to cover in 4 days over one summer. I didn't do anything. My mom thought I was like starving to death. I laid on my couch in the summertime at 8 years old, and at the ripe young age of, I guess that's fourth grade or third grade, between third and fourth. And I did not get anything out of them close to it's. I mean, I would say it's shameful, but it isn't, because I was only 8 years old. So I got the action stuff out of it, and I had the same letdown feeling that you mentioned, Jonathan. When I finished them, I was just like, no, there must be more.
Yeah.
And I also credit, like you said, Lord of the Rings for sparking my love with other fantasy and sci-fi. I became a voracious reader. I went to public school, spent much of my time in the library when I was done with classes and sports, and would just read everything they had. I have a special love for imaginative literature. So I'm a big fiction reader versus nonfiction, although I have read plenty of nonfiction. And then I continued through college, where I convinced one of our professors to hold a seminar on fairy stories, which was fun. And then it's actually a professor we may have on our podcast at some point.
Oh,
he's
awesome!
Still kicking around, and he would like to contribute. Last I heard. Awesome. So anyway, and then when I got married, started having kids, I just started reading them over and over. And, every time I read them, they get deeper and deeper. And it's funny because you can think of it in a way, some people, if you're a pessimist or so, You could think of it as, you just, sort of forced to shoehorn in more meaning into the literature because you're reading it for the 21st time. But that's not my experience when I've reread other books, even other good books, even things like the Narnia Chronicles. I also enjoy reading the Narnia Chronicles to my very young kids, but I don't get more out of them each time. And even though C.S. Lewis is a fantastic author, there's a true depth to what Tolkien created in these works that is almost unique. I do believe it is actually the greatest work of fiction of the 20th century. And I think it deserves a place in the annals of great literature across. I think time will show this, but just like we read literature from previous, Don Quixote, and we read the Song of Roland, and we read Beowulf, and we read all sorts of Milton and Gulliver's Travels, and all sorts of other fantasy-ish literature or fantastic literature of some kind or other. The Arthurian legends. I think that people will read Tolkien for a long time.
Well, what's unique about Tolkien, I think, too, is that, and you, I think you've experienced this more recently than either of us, Dan, is that when you get into the Lord of the Rings is like the flower shooting off from the tree, right? You know there's a tree behind it, and you know like that there's all this little stuff that's necessary in order to create this thing. But you miss a lot of it because all you're doing is looking at the flower. Once you start,
that flower is pretty. Yep,
yeah,
sure is
and
pretty.
once you start you're like, wait, there's a whole trunk, there's everything else, and you start experiencing on that flower becomes more and more beautiful every time because you know everything that what took to make that, right? And so when you go through the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales and you read his essays and you know have a better sense of the author, it makes what he wrote so much more. Not impressive, but it speaks so much more to you in many ways that it didn't the first read through, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So,
I'm always struck by that line. I think C.S. Lewis did a review one time of, it was either The Hobbit or The Fellowship of the Ring, but he wrote this review and he was saying the thing that strikes you when you read Tolkien's mythology is that this is a world that's lived in. And all of these characters have a right to be there. Like they have their own. It's almost like they're more real. Yeah. Because it's like they're in a world that's been going on before they even existed, and it will keep going on.
Right.
Yeah. It's lived in.
Yeah, we are gonna cover in our Exploring Tolkien podcast at some point. We are going to cover On Fairy Stories, and we'll hear much more about that because it's funny because that was Lewis's impression because that was Tolkien's goal was to make that kind of what he would call a secondary world.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is us, guys. That's how we all found Tolkien. Now, how did we all find each other?
Well, Jonathan is wearing the shirt, so
I am actually. Well, here's the funny thing. So I used to live in California near where the Babylon Bees offices are. And I was, let's see, this would be 2020, right? Yeah, December of 2020. So, wait, is that COVID years? Yes. No.
It's like right before COVID.
Right before. COVID is 2021? No, 2020 was COVID.
COVID was March 2020, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, so this was 6 months after that. So I was in the office. We still had an office, but nobody else was there except two of us. And it was like enough space for like 10 people in there. Like it was a larger, like not a huge office, but enough for my business to run. But nobody else was there. So I was listening to the Babylon Bee podcast, and Cal Mann, the host or the editor-in-chief there who hosts it, said, he's like, oh, we're going to be doing a Lord of the Rings podcast. And so I was like, let me go to their chat or your contact form and just say, hey, it sounds like you're doing the Lord of the Rings podcast. I'd love to help out and connect you guys with any fans or anything like that. Not thinking that like what you did. And so I sent that off. And like that night you were like, sure, we'd love to talk. Would you be open to being on the podcast? Essentially like next week or the day after tomorrow or something crazy like that. And I was like, sure. Like that was completely unexpected. And so at that point I'd already been packing because we knew we were going to be moving from California. And so I packed up all my Lord of the Rings books. I packed up, I had no physical copy books anymore. And I couldn't sit there reading it with a digital copy. That would look incredibly, I thought that would just look bad. So I ran down to a bookstore, grabbed the full edition of Lord of the Rings and started reading the first, I don't know, however many pages you were into it at that point. And then
did you get the compendium version or with 3 books?
The 3 books, yeah. And so we did the podcast with you guys. I was nervous, dude. I was so nervous. Like, I mean, I'd never, like, at heart, I'm an introvert. But you know,
which is why he does so much media and runs.
I can play the part. And my business, I'm the one. I speak to a lot of clients and I deal with all our employees and things like that. So I have the practiced behavior that's necessary for it. And I don't mind it, but you know, I need my time alone, so I'll go outside and read a book and smoke a cigar for long enough to recharge myself. In any case, so we did that, and then that day when we did it, you invited me to this cigar store. I can't really get it right there. To go to a Chestertonians reading group, and my internal introvert was like, "Oh, really?" And then I was like, "You know what? I reached out to you guys, and you guys reached out to me, so I'm just going to be like, yes, let's go, let's find there." And then I met the greatest people in this group, and Michael. So
this is fair.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
No, and I think Michael, I was there, and then like 2 weeks later, you came for the first time.
You'd only been there for 2 weeks. I didn't realize that.
It was like December 15th or something like that, 2020. And I think you came pretty soon after that for the first time.
2020. Anyway, I came in spring 2021. Yeah.
Okay, so it was maybe a month or so or two. But yeah, so we got there, and then I got to know you better and a lot of other folks. I mean, it was a great cross section of people, not just. Not just believers, but Catholics and Protestants, and wasn't there a Muslim guy? And
wait a minute, not just believers, but also Catholics and Protestants. So that means Catholics and Protestants aren't believers.
And Michael.
And there's me.
That's where I was going with that. Yep. But yeah. So that's my memory. Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys like? That was a quick overview, and it's a little more than that. But I was actually, and then when you were leaving a few months later. They actually leaving. I feel like we should be part of this, like AA. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm an addict. It's like the CAA, the California Addicts Anonymous. So I also used to be a California resident, and I took over the very large shoes that Jonathan had filled on the Babylon Bees, B Reads Lord of the Rings podcast. And I was also nervous in my first time, but then I listened to a few of your podcasts. I'm like, I could do that. They're just riffing. You clearly knew more than what I knew. So I was just like, I
know more about elves apparently because I'm not bothered by Legolas running on snow. But
I'm never gonna get over that. Never. But what's funny is like so. I mean, and I think one of the first times you asked me once is like, I think I've read some of your stuff. Like, and we found out there's another Jonathan Watson who's written like some Tolkien papers online, essays or something like that. And you thought that was me. And I'm like, no, I'm not that smart, man. I ran a little website here for a while. But, and so that was like maybe that was the first night you were there, I think too. And we just started talking Tolkien and we're there many nights until like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah, a lot of camaraderie. It's really good. We love Chesterton obviously as well, but it was the kind of a companionship that you don't get a lot of, especially masculine companionship. You don't get a lot of in our culture these days, and so I don't know if I was supposed to say that out loud, but
you're allowed to here. It's a safe
space. It's okay. It's okay.
That's right.
So Dan, you're like the glue because you're the one at the Babylon Bee. So the Bee did that whole podcast of the entire Lord of the Rings for 1 year, about a little more than a year or so.
It was about a year.
Yeah, and so
it's one of those Providence things.
So you were on every episode. I was up through Fellowship of the Ring, which was like through part of June, I think, of that year, and then they accelerated and they did all the Two Towers and Return of the King pretty much for the rest of the year. And so we got through all.
They finished in January. I wasn't there for the last couple episodes.
Oh, that's right.
But I was there through the end of December. Yep.
Yeah. And so then we decided to start our own, and I've gotten less. I've gotten less. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm waiting. It's got to be a good word.
I don't know. Less. What's the word?
Less afeared.
Yeah. I've done this a few times now. Now I just generally don't care what people think. And I've played the Gollum game, so I know it can't get worse.
Yeah, you have in fact found the basement level.
The lowest common denominator of everything is the Gollum game, and it is
nothing scares you anymore.
Only up from there. All right, guys, we are in deep. So that's how we met. If you guys want any questions, ask in the comments on YouTube or become a member and join Discord. You can ask more questions about that. But Anything else to say about
I will
that,
go to
guys?
the YouTube comments, and we will see.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions.
Yeah, or if people want to start suggesting things to read next, we're going to do the on fairy stories for sure. Very soon after this, I think that'll be a good sort of change pace. Number 2, we're going to start going through the complete list of film changes, and that too. But then at some point in the next few months we should pick another book too. So or maybe
Right. Well, Tolkien has. I mean, it would be fun to read through some of his other fairy stories. Farmer Giles of Ham.
Yeah.
And
Leaf by Niggle.
Leaf by Niggle. That's less of a fairy story, but actually it is. It's more philosophy. But Leaf by Niggle definitely, and then Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
And I think we could also pick like certain longer stories that are in the Histories of Middle-earth or Unfinished Tales. We don't have to do like, let's go through the whole book, but we could pick certain parts of it because some of it is very dry and not... if it's scholarly, if that's your whole goal, then that would be part of it. But like if you go through the whole, the Athrobeth, which is Finrod and a human woman discussing mortality.
Metaphysics.
Metaphysics, yeah, right. What does it mean? Anyway, so the things like that would be interesting. So we'll see. We'll pick, and eventually we got to do Lord of the Rings. I mean, we have to.
Yep.
We just can't. It might take us 3 years, but
look, there's plenty of material to do, but we will eventually come back and do Lord of the Rings. Maybe we'll time it with the season 2 of the Rings of Power so that we can hit all the beats.
When is that coming out anyway? 2024, I think.
Yeah, 2024.
Yay!
Oh man.
Look at the 2 reactions.
Dan's like, how many episodes of this are we going to have to do? So you need to be on our live streams, Dan, because it's a catharsis. You get it all out of your system.
Yep.
It's like, you realize you're not the only one bearing the brunt of this pain in your life.
Dan, have you been able to watch any of the Fellowship Fridays that we've had?
I have not yet. Yeah.
They're actually pretty good. There's a lot of different podcasters, and it's a fun sort of bouncing of thoughts and ideas off.
Yeah.
We argue a bit too, which is nice.
That is good. John Trent likes to argue. I know. I've noticed this.
Yeah. We're going to get him.
He's a natural contrarian.
We'll see. And I think we're going to get Austin Freeman in hopefully on this Friday. And we'll see if we throw some hard questions at him and then start arguing just for the sake of it and see how he reacts. Maybe if we can get anybody really angry in one of the episodes, clickbait, 100%. We'll just throw
That's right. That's what goes viral.
All right, guys. So normally when we have our extended show, and so here, for those of you who don't get the extended podcast, this is actually what it sounds like. So I'm going to play our extended podcast, which is beautiful. So,
did you think it would end this way? Oh, the journey doesn't end here. The grey rain curtain of this episode will be rolled back, and all will turn to silver glass. And then you hear it. Distant sounds like waves on diamond shores. A far greater episode under a swift sunrise.
I just want to go to sleep.
So beautiful.
That's right. Exploring Tolkien does ASMR.
It's so true. So normally, right, everybody's getting it this week, and we will do some additional members only stuff at the end. However, for the questions that they asked and Michael's question too of what does our family think about this here, but for all of our normal Tolkien Inquisitions, where we interview folks like we've interviewed John Trent and John Carswell and the Middle-earth Mixer, folks like that. These are the questions that we ask them each time. So I think what we'll do is who should go first?
Should we just do one question at a time and have
one question?
All right, let's do one question at a time. All right, I'll read the first question. All right, guys. Which circle of hell in Dante's Inferno does Amazon's Rings of Power series belong in? And I will read you these 9. Question. Yes, I will read you these 9 levels just so that we have a clear understanding. We're all on the same page. Limbo, lust, gluttony, greed, anger, heresy, violence, fraud, and treachery. Michael,
and I gave you all a teaser in that I actually have 4 arguments that it could be in I have a final answer, but I can make an argument that it can be in one of 4 of those 9.
Let's stick with your final answer, and then if we have time for
why don't you you go first.
Mentions,
you go first.
I feel like to me, it's the first circle. It's treachery because the ninth, the first and ninth, the lowest level of hell there. Because it's a betrayal of what Tolkien actually wrote, and is a betrayal of his works, and it is doing it on such a boringly bad level. Other than maybe the music, that was probably the best part of it, but everything about it doesn't seem like Tolkien to me. Like Peter Jackson hit so many notes in his you can with his movies you can argue that he did certain things wrong, but you would never say the entire thing like it failed on so many levels, because it didn't. And to me it failed with Faramir and with Aragorn, with Galadriel. But when it came to Hobbiton and the Shire, they hit those notes perfectly. When it came to like Helm's Deep and the battle there, they did it so well. And the Ents, even though people were like, they're too brief, they should have been more slow and delayed. Like that's where I feel like it was a betrayal, and so treachery to me is where it would sit.
All right, along with Judas there in
Jeff
Dante's
Bezos, Judas, and Brutus. It was all in the same place.
Exactly.
All right, I will let Michael go last since he's put a lot of thought into this one for the
this is my question. I love this.
That's right. This is your question. All right, Dan, it's on you.
The Venn diagram, the confluence of Tolkien and the great books, which is one of my things I love most.
Yeah, so my preparation for this question was 5 minutes before the podcast, saying, "Hey guys, what are the questions?" And then I looked up Dante's Nine Circles of Hell.
But for the Babylon Bee, do you really give these questions to the people before you ask them?
That's true. You guys prep me, but I'm just saying I have no frame of reference for Dante. I've never read.
But this is great because this is what you've been, Dan. You have been the canary in the coal mine. You have been the first impression Dan. That's what we call you.
Dan, you're the 99%er.
So I'm just gonna go with my gut here. I'm going with my gut. I like how you put them in the treachery, that's like the worst place you can be, right? You're basically right there with Lucifer. I think when I was reading it, I kind of placed it at
reading it or watching it. I hope you're watching it and not reading it.
Watching what? Oh, I'm sorry. When I was reading through like what are the 9 layers?
Got it.
I looked up a diagram to figure this out, and I think I would place them at there's one for heretics and serious criminals.
Yeah,
I think that's is that the 6th level?
Yes.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like it's a little heretical. They have taken a sacred text and they have twisted it and distorted it and have come up with their own version, which is heresy to what Tolkien wrote, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So both of your answers are potential answers of the 4, but because this is an interesting podcast, and not just I'm not lying.
As long as we keep saying it, it'll be true one day.
One day. Of the 4 that I had, because I could see it as either going into the ring of greed, the ring of heresy, the ring of fraud, or the ring of treachery. So the reason though that I will, and you guys gave good arguments for heresy and treachery. I mean, heresy, it ultimately is about the relationships to the right relationship to orthodoxy and God basically. And so that's a strong one. Treachery is a strong one, but the reason I dismiss treachery as my final answer anyway is because in order for treachery to be the case, you have to have a special relationship with the person that you're with, and Amazon does not have that relationship with us or with Tolkien. So Amazon didn't stab anybody in the back with this. I say, and ultimately,
okay.
They just stabbed you in the front.
I'll argue with that because I think the special relationship is with the book. He's not betraying the person; he's betraying what we know is.
They don't have that relation. If I were to make it as a lover of Tolkien and I were to do what they did, it would be treachery. But I don't actually believe that almost anybody on that set has a special relationship with the books. So that's the reason why I didn't make the final cut. My final cut answer is the 8th circle, fraud, because it's a lie. It says that it's about Tolkien. It is not Tolkien's world. It says that it's based on Tolkien's ideas. Its principles are actually opposite to Tolkien's principles in so many cases. Case in point, the Harfoots, or the dirty little psychopaths, sociopaths, as we call them. I mean, everything about it like takes everything that's good about Tolkien and it twists it and it tries to conform it to some lame ideology of today. It's a fraud. And so ultimately, while they had greed, while they did take that from a fan base perspective, heresy is probably the best answer. I say that ultimately it's just a lie, and that's the circle I would put it in.
All right.
Final answer.
So I might have picked that one, but my chart here says that's where flatterers and sorcerers go. It did not say fraud. So apparently I have an incorrect chart here.
So yeah.
No, that is flatterers and sorcerers are there too. And the reason, which you didn't ask me to say, but I'll say it anyway, the reason is because everyone in the eighth circle of hell is violating man's relationship with truth, which is one of the highest the highest and deepest things. And so everyone in the eighth circle violates truth, man's relationship with truth in some way. So anyway, that's why flatterers go in the same one as frauds. So
all right, guys. Second question: you're stuck in the halls of Mandos and can only watch one of these movie trilogies for all time. Which do you pick? The Lord of the Rings, the original Star Wars trilogy, Back to the Future, The Godfather, or I'm going to give you an out and say, is there another trilogy that you would watch in there? Trilogy. Has to be a trilogy. We're going trilogy. Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, in a sense. So we're going to go there. Michael, I'm going to start with you this time.
Lord of the Rings is extended version.
Extended version. Even though being in the halls of Mandos, you will have lived it at that point, so you're just watching it.
No, if I was in the halls of Mandos, I would have died in the first age, so I wouldn't have had it.
Yeah. All right, I'll go next. So for me, Star Wars, and when we get to the nerdiest thing I've ever done, you'll understand why. And I will say that what I did, I used to drive when I was when I was in college, it was like 21, 22. My commute to my job was about 40 minutes without traffic in LA. So that was a long drive sometimes. And I got super bored of radio, talk radio, the music that I had. Right. No MP3s at this time. This was just, I had a 6-disc CD changer I had to put in my car because I was driving so much. I actually recorded Star Wars on audio so I could listen to the movies while I was driving.
Wow.
So
that's
like
some
I was finding things.
sir.
So that's one thing that I did. So Star Wars, it would
dedication.
definitely be the original Star Wars trilogy for me.
Yeah.
Even though everything they're doing since 2013 has left a bad taste in my mouth, and I'm very unhappy with it. I'm trying to separate the fan fiction that's been happening since then from the original that happened before. So Dan, it's on you.
Man, this is a really tough question because there are several trilogies. We can only pick one trilogy. Yep. So something that's on the list that's really good is the Indiana Jones trilogy.
So you're just ignoring the Crystal Skull? How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Yeah, that's not in the trilogy, right? It's not really Indiana Jones. So.
That's right.
There's the Hobbit trilogy. The Hobbit trilogy.
Oh no, nope, not an answer.
So I guess maybe I would pick. What was the premise of this question? That it's like
you're in the halls of Mandos. You got that's the only movies you can watch for all eternity.
Okay. What about the Cornetto trilogy? You've got Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, that's
Shaun
right,
of the Dead. What's the other one? Hot Fuzz and World's End. That'd be funny.
I've never seen World's End actually.
Oh man,
should I?
Yeah, I think you should.
It should. Yeah, it's a good cult classic.
All right, that's a good. I like that little left turn right there. You took right turn.
Yeah.
U-turn.
Downturn.
All right, easy question. Dan, will go first with you. Whiskey, wine, or beer?
Oh man. I think I would go whiskey, just because it's just
you can get hammered a lot faster.
Well, yeah, it's more efficient, and then and beer is too high in carbs. So if you're trying to cut weight, that's not the best way to go. I think I would go whiskey, maybe a good Scotch or a good bourbon.
All right, Michael.
Before I answer, I just like to say that I love the fact, as the token Catholic on this podcast, that I'm getting the American Protestants to talk about what their favorite alcohol is.
Let's remember.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, remember I'm half German, so we drink real wine in the Lutheran Church. In Germany.
Well, what you drink is wine. That's true.
Yeah, but you're the Tolkien Catholic here, not the token Catholic. Just to be clear.
Boom, boom.
All right.
So I'm going bourbon. I'm going whiskey because bourbon is the liquor, the nectar of the gods in American society. The good bourbon, anyway. So it pairs best with cigars. Oh, wait, I gave away the answer to my next question.
All right, so I'll answer. I've never liked hard liquor. I just don't enjoy. I never have. I've tried it many times. I'm just like, it's just not worth it. Wine, I don't enjoy the dryness of a lot of wine, so I'm not there. So for me, it's generally a good Belgian beer. There are a few ones called Celebrator. That's probably my favorite. Although I have found a really good, I think it's an ale here in Tennessee called the Bear Walker, which is not that expensive, and it's a smaller craft place right here. It's really good. So a beer that you can't see through. You should be able to hold it to a light and pretty much not be able to see much through it. So it's got to have a heft to it. I hate IPAs. Can't stand them. It's way too hoppy. But a good Belgian beer is where I'll go with that.
Right. A good Belgian beer, not a good Belgian beer, right?
Yes. Belgian.
No, I'm saying that because that's what IPAs do. I can't enjoy them because they do something bad in my stomach.
Yeah, me too. They're not my thing. All right. Now, question number 4: cigars or pipes? Well, cigars. It's easy.
I'll go next. Both. I actually smoked both pipes and cigars. So
I like a pipe. It just takes a lot more work.
Yep, it's healthier for you. Takes a lot more work. You get less nicotine in your system.
Yep. Well, I'm definitely on team cigar here.
Yeah.
It's just I've only been able to get one pipe to smoke for me, and it's still so much work, and it's just frustrating for me. So
it's not very relaxing in that regard.
No.
Yeah.
And then you hear those tales like Tolkien would be walking down hiking down a road with a pipe clenched in his mouth, like puffing away as he hiked.
He's like he knows if he stops puffing, it's just going to go out.
That's true. But I greatly admire people that can walk with a pipe clenched in their teeth. That's impressive.
Yeah. All right. Question 5. Dan, I'm going to have you answer this one first, and then I'll go next. What's the nerdiest thing you've ever done? The nerdiest thing you've ever done.
There's this one time where I read the Silmarillion and did a podcast.
It's pretty dang nerdy.
Oh, that sounds like an awesome idea.
Oh man,
we should do that, guys.
Let's start a podcast.
The nerdiest thing. I mean, I'm a board gamer, so I could probably think of board game stuff. Yeah.
What's the longest you've ever played board games in one day?
Maybe 10 hours.
What's your favorite board game?
Ooh, I don't know if I could.
What's your favorite 2? Give me a good one.
I like a game called The Castles of Burgundy. That's pretty fun. And I mean, I know it's kind of fallen out of favor because it's like it's kind of seen as a gateway game, and it's maybe too long for what it is. But I like the Settlers of Catan.
See, I was going to choose that. Settlers of Catan is a fantastic game because it combines both strategic elements and social elements in a really
The Settlers of Catan is that 90s grunge band that became super popular, and then people started hating it because it got super popular.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a good game still. We still play it in our house.
Yeah, my kids are finally getting old enough where I can introduce them to good games and get out of. I think we're officially out of Candyland at this point.
Good.
So that's a really positive thing.
Yeah, Candyland disappeared on our move.
For me, the nerdiest thing I've ever done was in when the Phantom Menace came out, and people started organizing to line up for the Phantom Menace, Episode 1 of Star Wars. My brother and I, who's a couple of years older than I am, we were like, let's do it. Let's go do the lineup. And so we were part of the team that helped set things up. I helped them initially get online with some like because I was doing web stuff then, and at least I knew how to do some technical things. Eventually they got like real people to help them like live stream from Hollywood Boulevard next to the, I think at the time it was still, they called it Grauman's Chinese Theater because it wasn't Mann's Chinese Theater. I think they still call it Grauman's. Anyway, but the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, we were like half a block away, and you would have sign-ins and you got a badge and everything like that and sign up. And so it was a very organized thing. And for 230 something total hours, I waited on the streets of Hollywood over the span of 4 weeks. The last, I think I was there for 48 hours straight. That was the longest, for the Phantom Menace. I mean, it was an awesome experience. You can't do that anymore because we know what California is like now. But we had some pretty unique experiences. Our tent got peed on at some point by not an animal.
That is a Sunset Boulevard experience.
Eggs were thrown at us. And I mean, it wasn't, okay, it's not a small crowd. We're talking like 70, 80, 90 people involved in this. And so when it was a Friday night and everybody was there, it was a lot of stuff going on. And so, that's actually when I was there, as when I got the idea for the One Ring. It was like a day at work after staying overnight there. I would go from there to my work, and sometimes I'd drive back afterwards for fun.
And back to your tent.
Back to my collapsed tent, and it was it was like I'm still in touch with some of those people that we did that for. I didn't really do Phantom Menace kind of takes out some of your desire for seeing Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, so I didn't wait anywhere nearly as long for either of the other films. But for that one, that was definitely the nerdiest thing I've ever done. And it was there that I had the idea to do the OneRing.com, registered that day, started working on it while I was actually there. And actually, that was when I listened to the Silmarillion for the first time, driving back and forth from Hollywood to...
Oh, who did you listen to? Who was doing the narration?
It was Martin Shaw. It was still the same one they had now.
Okay.
So, that was the nerdiest thing. Michael, yours?
Mine is literary nerdy, probably the nerdiest thing I've ever done, which I have definitely said on here, or at least on the member section, but before, is I learned Elvish, a variety of different Elvish languages.
Wow, really?
And then I wrote letters to my girlfriend in Elvish. And then I taught my kids Elvish.
Wait, hold on.
I got a call. Wait. Okay, go for it.
Girlfriend or wife?
Now wife, yes.
Okay, it was okay. So she still married you?
Yes, she married me.
Okay, just checking.
So is that not nerdy? That's nerdy.
That's super nerdy.
So I would write, the Tengwar script. It wasn't full Elvish for her because she could do the transcription, I should say. But anyway, and then I passed it on to my children, my sons. I got a call from a teacher that my son had gotten in trouble in school because he was writing in between periods up on the in between recess and stuff. He would come in and he'd write Elvish graffiti across the whiteboards, and all the kids who knew who he was teaching, how to transliterate or transcribe the letters, were laughing, and the teachers were very frustrated because they didn't know what he was saying.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my kid got in trouble for Elvish vandalism.
Kind of like he actually write.
He was writing as one does when one is that age, young. Third grade, he was writing the usual so and so likes so and so.
That's it. In Elvish,
like different people in the class, talking about their budding love lives at third.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I couldn't have been prouder of my kid getting in trouble in school, I have to say.
Wow. All right, nerd checkbox done. We are definitely nerds, all of us. Although I think board games is totally the nerdiest, 100%.
That's the nerdiest?
Yeah. Not
wow.
nearly. Not 240 hours on a sidewalk.
No, that was a communal experience of joy and finding common ground with people. It was all right.
So I'm going to pull up my Board Game Geek profile. So I have a profile on the website Board Game Geek. I'll give you my top 10 board games. Is that nerdy enough for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a list that's been curated, and these games kick off and go back on. I don't know. So as of right now, Carcassonne, Galaxy Trucker, Combat Commander Europe, Pandemic,
never played that.
Dungeon Quest, Lord of the Rings: The Confrontation, which I think I've recommended on this podcast before.
Yep.
Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. So that's a different game than the main game, Agricola. Tigris and Euphrates, and Acquire. That's my list of top 10 games right now.
Nice. I've only played six of those.
So I'm nerdy enough to have a top 10 board game list on
that is pretty nerdy. I don't have that.
Nerd. Total.
Yeah.
Nerd, uber nerd right there. Okay. All right. Right from nerds into what would be your last meal if you could choose it. Michael, you go first.
My last meal would be, because I'm a Catholic, would be the Eucharist.
Okay. Other than the Eucharist, what would be your last meal?
Oh, I can't help it. All right. It would absolutely be a steak and whiskey and a cigar.
That's good. That's good. All right, mine. I am a huge fan of chicken wings, especially from a place called Quaker Steak and Lube. Some of you might know about it. There are a few restaurants. The original one is in Western Pennsylvania in a town called Sharon. They converted a Quaker State gas station into a larger thing, and with cars, and it was very cool. And when I was in college and high school, like they would have all you can eat wing nights for like $8 or $9. And so I remember one night my brother and I wanted to see. I ate like 53, and he ate like 60.
Whoa.
Yeah, didn't feel so good the next day.
No.
But yeah, wings. I love wings. So good wings from there in particular. They're Cajun. I think it's just called Cajun. Am I thinking Louisiana liquor? That's what it's called. That's my favorite there. With a little bit of ranch.
Have you ever done the wing challenge with the 10 hottest wings dipping sauces?
No, I don't want to hurt myself.
Yeah.
Right? I can do atomic and stuff. Like I have a very high tolerance, but I'm just like, once it just becomes painful rather than any taste at all, I'm out. It's not worth it.
Yeah. I didn't make it all the way through. I stopped at 9. And I was like, I'm not, it's just pain now.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, you?
I think I would probably go with just a good Italian dinner, just like pasta, lasagna.
What kind of pasta is your favorite? White sauce or red sauce?
I go for red sauce. So I'll have, spaghetti, meatballs, that kind of thing. Pizza, just anything in that genre would be great with a nice salad and maybe some like Tuscan soup or something. That would be really good.
Yeah. So essentially the Olive Garden. We'll take you to the Olive Garden.
there you go. Yeah, we'll do that. That's my last meal.
I don't know, Dan. It's sounding more and more papist.
I really like New York style pizza. So if I can get some like authentic thin slice New York type pizza, that's my jam.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well, speaking of your jam, Michael, who's your favorite Tolkien character, and why is it the Rings of Power's Galadriel?
Was it question Lord of the Rings or Tolkien character?
Did I say Lord of the Rings? Favorite Tolkien character?
Okay, so my favorite Tolkien character, it is a toss-up, but I'll probably have to go Faramir is my favorite Tolkien character, closely followed by Fingolfin, and because Fingolfin represents the ultimate elven defiance of a power far greater than theirs, and to actually fight in an armed combat the Black Lord himself before there was a Black Lord, the Morgoth. Is pretty dang awesome. So fantastic death, and he was the good brother as opposed to Fëanor. So of all the elves, and the elves are the greatest of the children of Ilúvatar. So. But yeah, Faramir from the Lord of the Rings books.
All right, Dan, do you want to go, or do you want to think for a minute? I got one.
I'm still thinking. But
okay.
Go ahead.
So it's not Turin Turambar, just so you guys know.
They were all waiting with bated breath.
That's good.
I'm going to say, just because of the feeling that I got when I first read it, and to have a favorite, it's like favorite kids, right? You can't really name. They're just different a little bit, and there are other things you love about them. But
you can, yes.
Well, Catholics can. I can't. So I don't know where that would. Gandalf. Gandalf gets like, he's obviously he's when you first meet him, he's such a engaging character, right? You just like him right away, but you know that there's a depth to him. So he's written with, I'm trying to remember anyway, but he's dangerous, right? He's got a sense that he's not completely safe, but yet he wants to protect, and so he's there protecting the fellowship, but he's also like grandfatherly, and he's also a friend, right? He meets so many things, and then when you realize, like, oh wait, he came back from the dead. What's his deal? Like, the depth when you first read The Lord of the Rings is you want to find out more about Gandalf and what he is, and you don't get it from there. So that was one of the things that drove me into like, wait, who really is Gandalf if he came back from the dead? Right. And so I feel like just because of how I experienced him the first time I read him, Gandalf is still my favorite character.
That's a good answer, but I feel like you just, when someone asked you your favorite board game, you just said Settlers of Catan. Gandalf is like the Settlers of Catan of the. I agree with you. Actually, jokes aside, I actually almost went with Gandalf because he spans both. He spans both the Silmarillion and
right. And he's in the Rings of Power. You can't go wrong.
Is he though?
We'll find out. Season 2. Dan, your favorite character?
Yeah, man, this is such a hard question for me because there's such a diverse range of characters. Obviously, it's Tolkien, so
diversity is your main filter.
Well, not diversity, but just he covers like such a broad spectrum of, like, you have the hobbits who are super loyal and Sam who sticks with his master all the way to the end.
Yeah.
You have Frodo who takes the weight of the ring and walks all the way basically to hell with this heavy weight that he's carrying, almost like in a priestly role. When we talk to Austin Freeman, I'm inclined to say like Gandalf, just because for the reasons that you say, and also there's this element about him where he's loyal to the free people of Middle Earth, but he'll just like walk off and just leave, and he won't explain himself. He's just like, I was over here. Sorry. I now I'm back. What's the problem?
Yep. He's the classic, and I'm out.
Yeah. Maybe Elrond. See, now I'm just listing like a whole bunch.
There's
of
so many good ones, right?
So.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I like Elrond.
Elrond is a good pick. Go with Elrond.
I'll go with Elrond just to lock it in. Just because he spans those long ages of Middle Earth, and he's seen so much, and he's like a master of lore. He knows the history and the context of like what's going on, and he's able to kind of be that safe refuge, that safe haven in the midst of this chaotic war. And he's able to kind of explain. He's almost like Tolkien stepping into his world and going, okay, here's what's going on. Here's who the bad guy is. He's able to give all the information that kind of sets up the whole story. I don't know. He's almost like a historian a little bit, or maybe I'm just reading into this too much, but
yeah,
it just seems like he's seen so much. He was part of the Last Alliance, and he can tell you like what came before the Lord of the Rings, and he's helping the characters in the story of the Lord of the Rings. He's just a cool character.
Good
really
answer.
Is.
I mean, there's so many good ones, right? You're just kind of picking like,
yeah,
you can pick any of them, including Turin if you really wanted to. Including Turin, you could say Turin. All right, next question. What movie or book are you low-key ashamed of liking because it's cheesy? Because it's cheesy. I answered this actually in an earlier one, and it would be those 90s Nicolas Cage movies, like Con Air, The Rock in particular. I really like The Rock. They're just so cheesy, over the top. The acting is crazy goofy. The action is just unbelievably big. So yeah, I would go with those, or that's a good action movie where you go into going, I'm just going to enjoy the action, not Fast and the Furious. Those have just gotten stupid. But a good action movie done well is really enjoyable. Top Gun, Maverick, right? We finally got a good action movie again after how many years? So that's something that I can just turn my brain off, really just relax and enjoy something that is fun.
Yeah, that is Con Air is a good one, and The Rock especially. Those are good cheesy action flicks.
All right, guys. Do you have a movie or book? You can pick a book that you're low-key ashamed of.
Almost. So I don't think I'm ashamed of The Princess Bride, but it is pretty cheesy and pretty awesome.
Well,
yeah. I'm on the bubble about being ashamed about it.
Nobody's ashamed of The Princess Bride. Everybody.
No one is? Oh, okay.
No one is.
All right, because I've pulled out Princess Bride movie quotes in business meetings, and I got some blank stares.
Were you like, after somebody said something dumb, where you're like, do you want to send me back to Greenland? Do you want me to send you back?
Do you want me to send you back where I found you? Unemployed in Greenland?
My 13-year-old pulled that out on me the other day. He's like, I said something. He's like, do you want to send me back to Greenland unemployed? And I'm like, I've never said that to you before. He's like, oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Bride. So, Dan, do you have one?
I can't think of one that I'm ashamed of.
Then embrace it.
Like,
you do work for the Babylon, but you're not allowed to be ashamed of anything.
Right. I can't. I guess I was trying to think of like action movies, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type movies, where it's just like everything's unbelievable, but it's still awesome. And there's also just like wacky comedies, like you ever see Top Secret with Val Kilmer?
No.
Yeah. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I know which one you mean, though. Yeah, it doesn't.
Everything is just wacky, and it's just silly. So maybe that one.
Okay. All right. Next question. A little more personal this time, guys. Have you ever been dumped or dumped anyone?
Who writes these questions?
Have I?
Dan, then you start. You've got some stories, and include us in on your historical past of Treachery.
Well,
no, just pick one. I know you've got a lot. Just pick one.
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many to choose from here.
Harsh.
I did have one long-term girlfriend. We were dating for about 5 years, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
And broken up. I got broken up via email.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that's that.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Email is rough.
After a 5-year relationship, it was email?
Yeah.
Yikes.
So can you guys top that?
No.
Don't think so.
Next question. No.
None of us. That was just a question for Dan. We just wanted to hear Dan talk about it.
Yeah.
I have not been dumped. I dumped someone in college, and to date my now current wife. Wow, I'm gonna get in trouble with that one. my now wife.
Tune in next week to find out if Dan's wife is still current. Dan's wife, Michael's wife.
Wow. This is going the wrong direction.
Maybe that too. I don't know. I might get an email.
Don't check your email. Oh, you beat me to it.
Just delete my email.
You know,
Can't break up with me.
I've never been dumped. I've moved away, which was, is that breaking up? I moved away. And I did break up with one person after. I want to say.
Wait, did you move away from your choice or your family's choice?
Well, it was my choice. In the sense, I could have stayed, but it was at the time we were moving to California, and I was in college, and I was like, I don't want to stay where I am, and the relationship isn't really keeping me here. It was fine, but for me, it was always relationships were always about, am I going to get married to the person, not am I going to enjoy a relationship. So the goal was always long term. So once I found out, once I realized it's not going to be there, then I was fine cutting it off. But I had one other relationship where I was interested in the person, in the girl, just to be clear. And thanks for getting that, Dan.
You got to be clear these days.
I know.
Yeah.
Man, it was it started on peak and then just kind of fell down, and it was sort of, you realize, this just isn't working. And after 6 months, I did it in person. I did not actually say that, but I was just I just see us going anywhere, and it hurt her a lot. And I was just it was rough, but it would have hurt her longer if I would have stayed. So there's that. The problem is a year later, she emailed me and she's like, hey, I was wondering if we could get coffee sometime just as friends. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But I was, I felt sorry for her in a way. And it was the whole, can we get back together? And I was like, no, you don't understand. We're never getting back together again. And I think it's best we don't ever see each other again either. So it's it went from there's a little bit of hope. So you're saying there's hope for her to absolutely nothing, zero zilch zipperino. So
did you just hit the button for the Taylor Swift song?
I took my coffee and went, never again. Dumped it right on. No, I'm joking.
No. Yeah, I was in college and I broke it off, and I was a bit of a jerk about it. I'm not proud. It was.
I'm Dan. Are we surprised? Really? I mean, sorry.
And it was only downhill from there. I just got worse.
Oh man. All right. Okay. 2 more questions, guys, and then we're done. What book should we as a society read that we're not reading anymore? Is there a book? What are we not reading that we should be reading? Should we say not the Bible? Should we say that
aside from the most popular,
most published, most influential book in history? How about aside from the Bible?
I have lots of answers, but I will go with
pick one.
G.K. Chesterton's Orthodoxy. I think there's lots of things we could read by G.K. Chesterton. I think he was one of those rare minds that came at a kind of peak of education in a Western world, and he had such insightful views into the nature of society and relationships, and of all sorts, metaphysical, physical, and cultural. And his book Orthodoxy is just a good example of his struggle with one of the most important topics. And so, I think more G.K. Chesterton.
Okay. Dan, you want to go? Got a book?
So what are we not reading?
What are we reading?
Defining that?
I don't know. Define it as a book we should all be reading. Let's not. I mean, it's just a good book that people should be reading that a lot of people aren't.
We're not basing it on whether
I will tell you. I'll give you 2. One is The Lord of the Rings. These guys, come on.
What?
Are you kidding?
On brand.
No.
Very nice.
No, seriously, like so many people have seen the movies. They're like, do I need to read the books now? And that bothers me a lot.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Me too.
Lord of the Rings. And I think the other one, and I'm not going to go theology or anything like that, like 1984. Like if we all read 1984, there might be more insight into the way things are actually happening in the powers that be these days. That resembles that more than you think. So those would be, 1984. Would be
Yep. Brave New World can do that too. Same,
Yeah.
Same style. Yeah. Along that vein, there are a lot of great books that people should be reading. And not be abandoned.
We'd be here a long time, and we're already here way too long. So.
You know what people aren't reading these days? Institutes of the Christian Religion by John Calvin.
There it is.
Yeah. That's a book that a lot of people aren't reading these days. It really should be.
Sorry, my audio is having some trouble.
Dan, Michael, when was the last time you read that?
I thought I heard someone just recommend we read heresy, so I'm sure that didn't happen.
There you go.
All right, we'll go with it. That's a good, there's something good about it. I'm all for it.
I don't know.
That's right.
Do it.
Yeah. All right, last question. Guys, this is sort of the general question that maybe we can just talk about for a couple of minutes. We're getting rewrites, retreads, and rethinkings for modern audiences, and all the stories that we see, hear, read, everything is redone, right? Again, Little Mermaid just came out because Disney can't come up with anything new, so they just take what they did and make it worse. So how can we foster creativity so we get new stories, new tales, great new creative art? That, and I mean stories, really. Like, how can we foster that creativity in people again? One of those is the last question: is they need to read.
Yeah, I was just going to say they have to read good stories so they know what good stories are.
Yeah.
So see our answer to the previous question.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, to be more specific, one of the things that I was thinking about, because I've been rereading some old fairy tales and fairy stories, and that doesn't exist nowadays in children's literature. Now, there's a difference between the parts of the question, because you can answer it with regard to children's literature or with regard to adult literature. But in a way, this touches on both, and that is that we're afraid of stories that speak of things that are dark and things that involve suffering. Nobody,
right.
not, and I mean real suffering. And those used to be an integral part of stories, and people leaned into those. And I don't just mean dystopian literature. I mean literature that is deep and hard and challenges you on a whole bunch of levels. And so I think
give me an example of, like, are you talking like Crime and Punishment or
I'm talking about
Dickens,
well, Dickens would be a good start, because even kids can read Dickens. But Brothers Karamazov is probably one of the heights of those things. But even the Grimm fairy tales, like the actual Grimm fairy tales, there was a reason why they are so harsh. And in terms of teaching one about life, actually, and the choices one makes. But you read early sci-fi with Asimov and iRobot and other works of his, and you see a harshness to their literature, which is challenging. And even though you may not agree with the author's point or worldview, you need that. We need that struggle. Our imaginations need to be engaged. They're like a muscle. They have to work on something. And if all you ever do is work on gruel and milk, then you'll never be able to create the meat. And I'm not, funny jokes about Rings of Power, raw meat aside. There's a real. I mean, this is a scriptural thing too, right? We seek the things that are substantial, and meat. The meat of literature is something that you have to be able to build to. Your system has to be able to be fortified in order to create it and digest it. And so, anyway, there you go. There's my lame analogy.
So here, I'm going to bring up, like, the stories, the fairy tales. When I was a kid, and like 3 or 4, 5 years old in Germany, was something called Struwwelpeter.
Oh my goodness!
Which what does it mean? It's like hairy, shock-headed Peter. Anyway, slovenly. And these are stories like, look, the kid won't eat his food. And this was exactly, like, this has been printed for a long time. This was exactly the animations that were in the book that I had as a child. A kid who won't eat his food, just, I don't want to eat it, I'm not going to eat it, and eventually whittles down to nothing and dies. Or, here you go, the next kid, the boy does not groom himself properly, is consequently unpopular. or the girl who plays with matches and burns to death. Like, these are the stories. It's not like people won't like you, or mom and dad will be upset, or will take away your video games. It's like, no, you're going to die
in flames.
Or
you will die in flames.
The cat's crying, putting out the ashes of the girl who died.
That's the girl's body.
That's the girl's body. That's what's left of her. And so, yeah, no, real pain and real ash. And so then here, the kid who sucks his thumbs gets his thumbs cut off. Like, that's this guy comes in. A roving tailor.
I like how this is a moral tale about the kid who won't stop sucking his thumb, but not about the guy with the giant scissors. Like, it's, that's just normal. He's just doing what he does.
You had to teach these things. Or the kid who doesn't who's using his phone while not crossing the street, falls into the water and drowns. So anyway, that's, I mean, a small part of dealing with real pain. And that's one of the things we talked about in our live stream, is that these great writers of the 20th century, they had experienced real despair, real pain. Like, they knew what it was, and they conveyed that in a way that we can understand it better because of the stories that they wrote. And when you don't understand that, you can't write depth. It's kind of like Rings of Power using the word faith, but not tying it to anything. They never said what you have faith in.
Because they have no idea what faith is.
Yeah. So there it is, guys. More reading. Everybody can read more, and that's what we're going to do here on Exploring Tolkien. Almost said Wind of the West.
Wind of the West.
That was close. All right, guys. Long episode. We're going to move into our hopefully somewhat a little bit briefer members section. So if you want to do that, go to theonering.com/member, become a member, and you can ask the questions there that we'll answer on the podcast. And you can also chat on Discord with us. You can get the extended podcast. And what else do we do? What am I missing? Oh, our monthly video chats. So we do monthly video chats in Discord. We all just get together and kind of talk for a couple hours. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and we do every other week we have a book club. We're reading through Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead. So join us there. That's on Thursday nights. And go to theonering.com/member, become a member, $4 a month. First month is free. Of course, unless you're like Harrison, Adam, Lynn, and Chuck, who give us a little bit more to keep the lights on. We really appreciate their sponsorship.
And such colorful lights they are.
Yes.
I usually say goodbye to the freeloaders, but you're probably all asleep by now since it's been like an hour and a half. So,
all right. Well, if you're still here and you're an extended member, you get the extended podcast intro twice.